is our history. Buildings and people and memories and dreams. Who better to tell us than those who were there? There's so much to learn from the stories they'll share. Living history. Living history.
Hello, my name is Ted Goldsboro. Welcome to the Living History program. Today we're going to be interviewing Helen Porter Dixon, who lived in Lower Merion Township for many years. So we want to find out about her and where she lived and where her mother worked, because things have changed so much over the years that where Helen's family was is no longer there. It's like a ghost town. So we'll be sharing images and maps and talking schematics, and we'll be talking about Helen's childhood. Helen, could you tell me where you were first associated with Lower Merion?
From my history begins when I was not quite 3 years old. I actually was born in the city and lived there, but my parents had a house at 2nd and Lehigh area, and the Depression came 3 years after I was born, and we lost our house. And my mother was a nurse and had worked at Dr. Ludlum's private sanitarium, which was a private mental institution in Gladwyne. And she used to come down Mill Creek Road to River Road to walk down to Manayunk to get a trolley to come home to us until we lost the house. And then my dad and I used to walk from Manayunk across the bridge and up River Road every weekend practically, and he'd carry a roll of black tar paper on his shoulders, or two sometimes, and because the house that we rented was only a boathouse, and it was up on stilts, and we had to winterize it so that he and I could live in there. My mother lived where she worked at Dr. Ludlum's and only was home on Thursdays and every other weekend. And so by the fall, he had it pretty well covered in black tar paper, and he and I used to sleep in the kitchen on a fold-out bed with a 3-burner kerosene stove. And in those days, there were no water. We had no bathroom facilities. It was an outhouse. But my job when he was working on the house was to take a little container and go across the railroad tracks, 3 years old, and carry a little bit of water and try to fill up a crock, 5-gallon crock, and all day long. That was my job.
Now, what railroad was that?
That was the Reading Railroad line.
Which still exists today.
Still exists today, yes.
And what year? This is about
1929.
29, but when your tar paper shack, when was that?
1929.
29.
That's when we moved there.
Okay.
I was 3 years old.
Now, on our video, we're going to have pictures of this schematic. Could you tell me about this drawing?
Yes. Mill Creek Road comes into River Road at a point, and actually Mill Creek runs into the Schuylkill at that point. And the property on the point of that area all belonged to Dr. Marshall at one time, and all the area from the dirt driveway from there down to the tent city, which I'll tell you about, belonged to a man named Parker. And we got the house, my mother got that house for us for rent for $10 a month. And that was considered a lot of money. And my dad, if he got work, he was a blacksmith, and if he got work, he made $3 a day. And but his big claim to fame was he made all the ironwork for Simon Gratz High School,
Oh.
the fencing
Railings
all
and-
around
oh, okay.
there. Yeah.
Oh.
Now, when I came there to live at the Black House, there were about 5 or 6 tents below this one particular area. And there's such a story going around the township that they were gypsies living there. This is totally, totally wrong. They were the same kind of people that we were. They lost their homes. I don't know where they came from or that, but I know that the kids from there went to school with me when I went to school in Merion Square School in Gladwyne. That's where I started.
Mm-hmm. Did in the tent city, they too used an outhouse?
They built themselves outhouses,
Okay.
and they lived like family. And they knew one another well, I guess, and they had a big cooking thing in the middle of the area, and they all, whatever food they could get, they all shared, and that's the way they did it, because nobody had anything back in the day, and we never knew anything different at the
Okay.
time.
What about in rain and snow, and where would they cook then?
They were living in their tents.
Wow, wow. Even in the wintertime?
Even in the wintertime. Yeah, that went on until a big flood came. I don't know how many years after 29 that happened, but it washed them. All their stuff was washed away. And they just disappeared in thin air. I never heard anything about any of them after that.
Did you used to play with their
Yeah,
kids?
I played with the kids. Yeah, we all played. There were a couple from the Baker family next door to us, and then there were a couple Andrew Miller had a son and daughter, and we all played in this big open field.
I see. And today, this would be where Flat Rock Park is?
Exactly.
I wanted to refer to maps. We have an 1851 map, which is the first good map of Lower Merion Township, accurate map. And River Road, Mill Creek Road comes down, and this is where Mill Creek joins the river, but the road and the river are there. And then there's a little dot, which is hard to see, but the little dot is right about there, and that was probably your store, because this is the railroad.
Eventually, we bought the store from the lady that owned it, but that was much later. I was in high school then.
Now, could you tell about the house and the store?
The house was a revolutionary. It actually belonged to the railroad. And I must tell you that all the ground around here belonged to the railroad as well.
Oh.
Parker owned the houses, but he did not own the ground.
Okay.
And where the store was, and we built after we bought it, we built a big garage on the back of it. That was a Revolutionary War house, and someone added on to it to make a second story. And actually, it was only 2 rooms. 2 rooms down and 1 more upstairs with a curved staircase. You couldn't hardly get any furniture up there. But my dad cut through the wall and put a door on the side, and there were steps up, and you could get furniture in to the second floor that way.
On the outside?
On the outside.
Okay. And this is a picture of the stone building.
Yes. This actually, there was a room here, was a living room, this room was the kitchen, and then up here was a bedroom, and we made a bathroom in the back. My father put water in this part here. After my mother was sick and we rented the garage out, we had closed the store, and the fellow that rented the garage had a fire. They were throwing oil rags in a drum and throwing cigarettes in there. Everything in the store burned to pieces, and the side of the wall. My mother was already dead at the time, and we had packed everything up and stored it in the store. Everything burned that they had, and the side of the wall had gone up in flames too. And the then township manager wouldn't let me rebuild.
But the expressway was already built, wasn't it?
The expressway was already built because when we had the store, we had business galore. I mean,
during the expressway.
During the expressway
Okay.
construction, I worked in the store from 7 in the morning till 11 at night. That's how busy
Now
it was.
this shows a bit of the store, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. That's exactly it.
And you rented or bought the store from?
We bought the store from Mrs. Sohn,
Could you spell that for me?
S-O-H-N,
Okay.
and her husband had been deceased for years. But you still didn't own the ground. It belonged to, we had to pay ground rent to the
Oh, to the
railroad,
renting.
and we had to pay rent for the house to the railroad.
Okay.
So the rent at that time for the house was $24
A month.
a month, and I was in my teens then, and into my 20s. And the rent for the ground for the store was $12 a month.
Okay. What did you sell in the store?
We had sandwiches. I made hot soup all winter long, every day. We had hamburgers, hot dogs, steak sandwiches, cold sandwiches, sodas, tasty cakes, candy, cigarettes.
Could you sit in the store with
You
their
could,
tables?
yes, we had 3 tables, 2 seats each. But the guys, when they were building the expressway, they came down, and the foreman made a deal with me. He said the different companies that were working at the time, they said they would send one group down at 11:30.
Oh, okay.
And another
Stagger
12
them.
o'clock.
Okay.
They only got a half an
Yeah.
hour, and the other one at 12:30.
Did you have anybody helping you in
No.
the store? You were all
No,
alone.
I was all alone.
Okay. Now, shortly we'll have to take a break here within about 30 seconds, but we're getting close. Could you describe the bridge there and what you see there?
The bridge is on River Road. It's still there today. It connects over the Mill Creek, and as you went west on it, or
We gotta
north,
wrap up
whichever.
now. Excuse me for interrupting, Helen, but we've got to take a little break now, and we'll be right back shortly to continue talking about the bridge.